Hi, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We'll just allow give people a few more minutes to join. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. First, to our provost, welcome, and to fellow faculty, good morning and welcome to our session, Incorporating Career Readiness Skills in Your Existing Syllabus. Here is a fitting analogy inspired by Gina's plant that is on this slide that she so ably designed. The pot represents John Jay's syllabus shell, core shell, and the soil represent the career, symbolizes the readiness skills that we aim to share today. The plant reflect our students, and the sunlight represent prospective employers. Even with a perfect pot, a thriving plant, and abundant sunlight, growth falters if the soil is lacking. Similarly, our student needs career readiness skills to flourish in their career. Our goal today is to raise your awareness on how to embed these vital skills in your syllabi, creating a strong foundation for our students' success. Together, Amie, Violet, and I will work with you to identify and implement these opportunities. You are the expert in your field, so we're not here to teach you anything. Our single goal is to raise your awareness of the essential competencies to consider each semester when you prepare your syllabus. Now, I'll hand it over to Amie, who will prepare us with a brief introduction. Amie?
Thank you, Cal, and good morning, everybody. It's great to see everyone, and thank you so much for attending our session. So Cal and Violet and I are the John Jay representatives of the CUNY Faculty Career Success Fellows for this academic year. And we wanted to each just share briefly with you what some of our motivations are for working on career readiness with our students. And I would say that for myself, I am very aware of the fact that CUNY students as a whole do not get the professional and economic boost of the college degree that students do nationally. And there are a lot of reasons for that, which I'm sure we could talk about, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. We do, however, know from recent data that the first job that students get after graduating with a bachelor's degree really does matter to their long-term professional success. And unfortunately, with John Jay College students, a lot of our students are getting marooned in non-college bound jobs in their first position after gaining the degree. So I'm really motivated to think about what we as the faculty can do to help our students successfully transition from graduating from John Jay to a professional pathway. And Violet, would you like to continue?
Right. Thank you, Amie. So hi, I'm Violet. I'm with CJBA department. So I became Career Success Fellow because like all of you here, we and I recognize the importance of getting practical guidance. Our students work really hard and strive to achieve the degree that they want, and they want to use their degree in their job. They want to build their career and they want to move up. And after teaching for many years, I've talked to many students and I recognize the importance of actually giving ground level practical help. That's why I'm here. And I think as a faculty member, we can help students to achieve their goal while they are in school and after they graduate. So that's why I became a Career Success Fellow. Carl?
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Violet and Amie. My name is Calvester. Last name is Legister for those who probably don't know me. I'm an assistant professor here at John Jay in the public management department. I focus a lot on the fraud, forensic, financials, and anecdotally, I have actually spent over 25 years in industrial practice, both in finance, accounting, and HR. I have lead those departments, and during those years, I have hired employees at different varying levels, including interns from universities. And what I observe is a marked gap between what the prospective employers believe and the employee. So as a result of that, when the opportunity arose for me to join CUNY Success Fellow, I felt it was a great opportunity to formalize my personal response and the ability to actually help bridge that gap. Additionally, each semester I have students who approach me about career advice and also, about, jobs opportunities and so forth. So I believe this Career Success Fellow offer me that formalized opportunity to give these students a response, and also why we're doing this session today to help you, actually raise that awareness, as I said, as to how you can include these competency in your syllabi. Amie?
Thank you, Cal. So what we would love for everybody to do at this point is to just informally write in the chat what especially you are interested in regarding career readiness for our students. What have you worked on already? What are you curious about? What kinds of roadblocks have you encountered? What are your ideas and interests or motivations about working on career readiness for our students? If everyone could just informally write something in the chat, that would be a great starting point for us. Thank you so much.
Next slide, Violet.
I
Is
was muted.
everybody-
I'm sorry about that. So this is related to what Amie left off a little bit. So we thought that we could start with asking questions. Basically, the questions are twofold. First is, have you ever incorporated career readiness competencies in your courses previously, including this semester? And if you did, then which discipline you're teaching and brief example that you like to share. If you have not, I'm sure we are all thinking about student success. So what would make it easier or possible for you to incorporate career readiness competencies in your courses? So given the time limit, hopefully we have chance to hear from everybody, but if we may have to choose only a couple of examples from one camp who have done it and one camp who are thinking of doing it but haven't had a chance to do it yet. So I see from Jill have worked on making connection explicit between assignment and skill valued by employers. So do we have time to hear briefly from Jill what the specific skills valued by employers that you think or you identified?
Sure, I'm happy to talk briefly. I think, so looking at the CNU skills that employers particularly value, I show those at the beginning of the semester and kind of link some of the assignments that we're doing to those skills. And I also really accentuate the importance of reliability too. So that isn't something that is explicitly said by the AACNU, but I've noticed that there's a lot of non-attendance and lateness in my classes since the pandemic. And so I, really accentuate that that's an important skill to develop, and that we need to, if students want letters of recommendation, that's one of the things that I'm going to mention. But more explicitly, in terms of the assignments that I'm doing, I'm focusing a lot on group work, so the ability to work with diverse others. And we talk about why we're doing the group work before we actually do it. And students are cognizant that that's an important skill to have in the workplace. Critical thinking skills, communication skills, So again, anytime I'm doing an assignment, we talk about the learning objectives of the assignment and try and link them to career readiness. So I'm going to stop there because I'm sure other people have much more interesting things.
So I have to. No, I don't have to, but I'm sorry it's being recorded because I'm making a lot of blunders here. But I just saw what Alison wrote, and I think it's right. I mean, I agree with her and everybody else here that we really need to make explicit connection like Jill just did. I think we are all aware of it in our head, but we may don't make it as explicit to students why we are actually paying attention to those things. So I think that's one of the things that we can do. But can we have example from someone who have not done so yet, but what would make it easier or possible for you to incorporate career readiness competencies? I think everybody have done it actually. That's great news, isn't it? Everybody sort of have incorporated career readiness skills in their courses, one way or the other.
Maybe Jim could talk a little bit about the course you're teaching or the internship course you're teaching and what you would like to do there with career readiness.
Yeah, these students work 2 days a week with judges in the New York Supreme Court. And one thing I just taught it for the first time last semester, and one thing I'm going to emphasize a lot more this semester is kind of how you behave in a professional environment. Because at least one student came to me and we had a long discussion about it. And she was just very uncomfortable in that kind of environment, and kind of making them more comfortable in how you deal with that. I do think that most of the students in this course want to go to law school, and so I also emphasize how important deadlines are as a lawyer, and they see that in their internship. But one thing I'm really going to try to promote a lot this semester is kind of behavior in a professional environment.
Right, I agree. Okay, so given the time limit, I'm sorry we didn't have chance to hear from everybody, but let's move on to next slide.
Okay, thank you, Violet, and thanks for those people who participated in both the chat and also spoke, Jill and James. Thank you so much, and Jim, thank you very much. So our learning objectives today, I have listed here 5. However, as you might observe, number 5 is the one we'll focus on a lot. So understanding career readiness across discipline would have been one of our objectives, implementing career mapping and program levels, designing career-focused learning outcome, and incorporating experiential learning activities. Number 4 is pretty critical, and we will speak about that somewhat later. But number 5 is where we will spend most of the session today, and it's going to be action-oriented syllabus improvement. Here, faculty member will identify specific opportunities to incorporate career readiness within their Springs 25 syllabi and beyond, fostering continuous curriculum enhancement. I'll now turn it to Amie, and she will walk you through some of those competencies.
Okay, thank you, Cal. So as I think you can see already from some of what Jim and Jill talked about, as well as what people wrote in the chat, this is a list of competencies for career-ready workforce that is defined by an organization called the National Association of Colleges and Employers. The acronym is NACE. You can see on the bottom right of this slide their web address. This is basically a nonprofit organization that connects college career services professionals with employers, and it has an enormous amount of information and data on college graduate employment. It also provides resources and networking opportunities and professional development for faculty members. And does interesting things like tracking starting salaries, hiring practices, and student outcomes. It's also highly committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's just a little bit of background information for you about NACE, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, and it is effectively the mainline framework that as career success fellows, we're being asked to use in terms of looking at how to implement career readiness into our various courses and curricula. So I guess the one thing I do want to say about this, these competencies is that if you look further in the data, there is enormous agreement between students and employers about what is important. So in other words, students and employers agree at almost 100% rate that communication is a top career readiness competency. However, there's a really significant difference in how students rate their proficiency versus how employers rate the proficiency of their incoming college graduates. And won't be surprising to you to know that, for example, students rate themselves as extremely proficient in communication at a rate of almost 80%, whereas employers only find that barely half, barely 50% are highly proficient in communication. So there's a real gap where students are over perceiving the degree to which they're competent in these areas. And this, I think, is really like a lever that we, as the faculty, can push on to help our students be more prepared for those internships and also ideally to make that successful transition from graduating with a BA into a professional pathway. Okay, thank you. And I believe that Cal is next.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Amie, for eloquently describing those competencies. As I said at the top of the introduction, that in my career, even before I was aware of NACE and these competencies, I did observe that gap. Whereas it was not a formalized observation, I know it exists. However, I also did state that I'm not here to teach anything. And none of this is going to be exhaustive, what we're sharing in terms of best practice, because every course, every discipline varies. However, some ideas you could take away in terms of how best practice you can incorporate career readiness in your syllabi. You could see here, career readiness includes an oversimplified way of bridging the gap, I'm sorry, between what is taught in the classroom and the expectation of a prospective employer. Amie just actually talked about that gap as well. Second, as educators, one of the best practice approaches to improve career readiness is including experiential learning activities in our syllabi. And here, you don't want to overwhelm the student, but as many experiential learning activities that you can build into your courses is how you would actually help to prepare those students. And Kolb's experiential learning theory, EL, identify some things that will some key takeaway from actually having experiential learning activity incorporated. One, it highlights concrete experiences that can be gathered by students. Two, active experimentation. So during that process of the experiential learning exercise, the student can do active experimentation. And then you have reflective observation, and it brings together abstract concepts. So make it a lot easier for the student to grasp. On the next slide, you'll also see we created as a group these four sort of G's to help remind you of some ways in which you can incorporate experiential learning. And Jill mentioned early group assignment. I know a lot of people are afraid of group assignment, but believe it or not, is one of an excellent way to enforce critical thinking. It also kind of put each group member and with their peer to compare ideas and make decisions for presentation purposes or otherwise. A second way in which career, readiness could be incorporated is in inviting guest lecturers. I'm sure a lot of you are already doing these, But if you brought into your classroom real world mentors, in the case of Jim, you mentioned, student working in the Supreme Court area, bring in somebody who actually are within that field, it could really raise the student awareness of what and how to behave in a career of that nature. And number three is going beyond your syllabus. I particularly am intrigued by this one. I use this very often throughout my courses. I teach quantitative courses, financial accounting, but I also incorporate things like philosophy, believe it or not, because students need to think about ethics and other elements that falls into that discipline. But here you can use a multidisciplinary approach, which is keeping the discipline intact, but borrow from it in incorporating career readiness, experiential learning ideas, and you can do cross-discipline. Cross-discipline is where you literally take elements of a discipline from one area and use it in your area. This makes your course interesting. For example, I actually created a course, project for students, and here, what it would involve was cross-discipline between philosophy, CJM, which is criminal justice, and fraud forensic. Just imagine giving your student a project to do that borrow from 3 different disciplines. I promise you it's going to be a lot more interesting for them overall. And the last, here is number 4. And again, as I said, none of this is exhaustive. We call this GROC. And all this is just a deep understanding. If we can get the student to be in touch, be one with the material that they're studying, that knowledge and technique will just can be applied using digital software or other simulation to get the students to be in touch with that material that you're delivering. So essentially, as I mentioned before, just to give you case examples, I have one course that I'm currently teaching, financial accounting, and a part 2. And I have a semester-long project that I give the students, and what they are supposed to do is somewhat role play as board of directors. So their role is to act as if they take a publicly traded company. They need to get familiarized with the 10K that the publicly traded company has and go through all the material that I've already taught during the semester and now make decision for that company. Yes, how many of our students are going to become board of director? Believe it or not, I tell them at least one of them will. Even if they don't become a board of director, but if they're in a classroom, in an employer setting, and they have a task, a project, they can play that role. So it improved their leadership skill. It helped them to think critically and also understand what happened in the real world. So that will, that's one example of how you can actually build case assignments that could help incorporate career readiness and experiential learning. There are so many other examples I could give you because I have incorporated quite a few during at Janjay as well, but time will not permit. So those are just some ideas, and I'll turn it over to Violet, who will walk you through some of the career learning lab facilities that are available to you that can also be used. Violet?
Thank you, Carl.
Uh,
So John Jay and CUNY actually recognize the importance of providing practical help to students. That's why CUNY have Career Success Fellow, and John Jay actually has newly transformed Career Learning Lab. So we, Amie, Carl, and I been in contact with the Career Learning Lab to learn more about what they do and how we can actually help professors to utilize the great resource that John Jay already have. So Career Learning Lab, if you actually later, search and go to Career Learning Lab, they actually explain what they do. So one of the things that they do, and which they can be relatively easily incorporated in your courses, is that guest lecturer, the number 2 in one of slide 8 here. So when you go to Career Learning Lab, you can fill out the Google form, and then you can request staff member from CLL come to your class, and I've done that to this semester, and it asks you what kind of discipline you're in, what level of student you have, junior, senior, freshman, so that Career Learning Lab can actually direct attention to specific things, and Career Learning Lab can help student with resume building and VMock interview, kind of thing, and a student can make appointment using eNavigate, or they can walk in. So all this information is available on their website. Another thing is that student can consider giving maybe a bonus appointment for having a resume building or having mock interview with CLL. I found them to be really responsive and have great ideas. So this, I asked Parima for a paragraph that I can put in our core syllabus. So this is paragraph that I was given. So basically it tells the student that they are available and they are here to help, and they help student with identifying career opportunity or internship opportunity. And if you have any opportunities, if you are aware of any internship opportunity or career opportunity, then you can send it to this career learning lab, and they will probably have someone, hopefully, or identify students who are suitable for that. Okay.
Okay, just. Okay, so we have now reached the point in our session where we're going to put us into some smaller groups and give everybody an opportunity to work on any syllabus you want. It could be a syllabus for spring 25. It could be something that you're planning for later, but I'm just going to briefly walk you through what we're going to do in these small groups. I have just placed in the chat a PDF handout for everyone to have, since we won't be screen sharing in the breakout groups, and it also contains some more information that hopefully would be helpful to you going forward as far as revising your syllabi. So the first thing that we're going to do in the small groups is give everybody a chance to review your syllabus and to highlight in, well, I say in pink, but of course you can choose any color you want, where in the syllabus you are introducing, practicing, or evaluating any one of the NACE competencies. So I also have put on this handout those NACE competencies. But these things you highlight could be activities, they could be readings, experiences, they could be learning outcomes, they could be assignments, assessments, expectations. So some of you have spoken about these already. For example, talking about professional communication, maybe assessing that in email, in phone messaging, in personal interactions in class, so on and so forth. Once people have had a chance to kind of do an initial review of your syllabus and look at where you're already actually teaching some of the NACE competencies, we're going to give each of you an opportunity to work on one of 3 revision ideas. The first would be to work on revising a learning outcome in your syllabus based upon the NACE competency you identified. The second would be to work on developing out in more detail a particular activity you already have on your syllabus that's targeted at a NACE competency. And the third one is more of like an overall assessment where you're looking at a particular competency, such as critical thinking, and you're looking in your syllabus is where am I introducing this competency? Where am I allowing students to practice it? And where am I assessing it? And then you're trying to rebalance those 3 categories so that you have more of a equitable distribution of time spent on introduction of the skill, practice of the skill, and assessment of the skill. So obviously this is going to be a first pass for everyone at doing these revisions, but we hope that it will be interesting and helpful for you, and that we'll have a good, robust conversations in our small groups. So just to make sure, does everybody see the PDF handout in the chat? And if you could go ahead and get that open and also get one of your syllabi in front of you, that would be great. And then I believe Violet is going to put us into small groups, and Cal, Violet, and I will each be in a small group. So have fun. See you in 15 minutes.
Welcome. Welcome back. I'm so glad I was able to figure out how to do breakout rooms. I think we're all back. Amie?
Okay, great. Welcome back. Oh my gosh, I forgot to do the one thing to ask someone in our group to be a reporter. So Cal, I bet you and Violet both remembered to do that. So maybe a reporter from your group will start us with a brief report back.
Certainly, Bernadette, thank you.
Okay. Well, one of the things I think that we talked about was going back and making explicit on the syllabus what the connection is between the assignment and the skill that the employer is going to want to have. You know, I think we noted that, of course, we speak about that in class. You know, and there was like one place where I do write it, but you know, maybe we want to also put it on as a learning objective, so it moves up to an earlier spot in the syllabus, and just focus on making those connections between the skill, whether it's a group project, a written project, you know, and the specific, why are we torturing you with doing this? You know, because a boss is going to expect that you can, you know, whether communicate in writing, work as a team, you know, I mean, which is obvious to us, but maybe we need to hit them over the head with it a little more strongly. You know, I know Jill was talking about doing mini experiments in class too and having them report back on that, you know, which ties into Cal talking about experiential learning, you know, which was a little different from the stuff that I've been doing, you know, in terms of writing assignments and group projects. But I guess that's it without getting into a deep dive and just redoing.
Thank you so much, Bernadette. And from Violet's group?
So we have Kendra.
Yes. So we talked quite a bit about professionalism and communication and how we can, you know, start to include this in our syllabi explicitly. Someone had the idea to actually write out some email etiquette rules in the syllabus. Another person had the idea to create an assignment around this. So rather than having them, you know, write an essay, instead maybe it's written like an email or a memo to enhance some of the communication and the ways that we see students, you know, interacting with us via email. And then another big theme was group work and thinking sort of expansively about how to maximize group work for different kinds of NACE skills. So of course, teamwork, but also what would it mean to make a group leader? And so enhancing the leadership skills and so on.
Thank you so much, Kendra. And could I please ask Jim or Kathy if you would volunteer to be our reporter?
I'm happy to do it.
Thank you, Jim.
We talked from what Bernadette, to follow up on what Bernadette said, we did talk a lot about ensuring that students know why we're doing this. What's the rationale for doing this? How is this going to improve your skills once you're out of John Jay and into the workforce? We also talked about the need to reinforce kind of continuous improvement, responding to comments, responding to feedback that they'll get in the workplace, and how do they kind of commit themselves to become, for example, better communicators, both oral and written communication. And then, you know, one thing that Amie and Kate talked about was that when you look at the competencies, you know, you could look at those and decide, oh gosh, this is just, I'm going to have to just totally rewrite my syllabus, and it's going to take so much time. And you really don't need to do that. You could just take one or two of those and incorporate it into either a learning objective or some assignment, and reinforce it that way.
Thank you so much, Jim. And I'm going to pass it over to Cal, but I just want to say that on our handout, we did give you an idea for an icebreaker on the first day of class. to ask your students what careers they're interested in and what kinds of skills they think they might need to be successful in those careers, and maybe introduce the NACE competencies to them that way, on a day when you might have time to do that. So that's just one idea. And then go ahead, Cal. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amie. Again, I just want to thank you all for joining our session. I borrowed this slide actually from last week event that both Amie, myself, and Violet attended, because I wanted to just give you some stats as to what NACE found in terms of career readiness competency rated by employers. And these are the rank is out. So you can see communication based on the rank, and this is from the employer's perspective, is 4.49, critical thinking 4.46, teamwork 4.37, and naturally leadership they have at the hand. I found this fascinating because then in terms of when you're incorporating these different NACE competency in your syllabus, this is something to bear in mind. Of course, in terms of point in time, this research was done some times ago, so things could change over time, but at least it's a useful guide. And I found it fascinating. I just wanted to share it with you as well. And I mean, that's it. Violet?
So now we are moving on to Q&A. I think we have only maybe a couple of minutes, but if anybody have any question or comments that you'd like to share, or kind of cheerleading message, we'd love to hear from you. Yeah, Jim, please.
Cal, could one of you all send out the presentation to all of us, or put it in the chat? Because that last slide, I think that may be a slide that I would like to use in class.
Absolutely. I think, Dustin, this will be recorded and they will have opportunity to get copies of these, right? Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Great.
So yes,
Thanks.
it will be available.
So we are almost done, but Ellison, I know you're here. Would you like to say something?
Absolutely. So first of all, I'm so excited everyone's here. Thank you all. This is really interesting. I'm thinking a lot about this. As I put in the chat, as provost, right, there is tremendous pressure on colleges to be, quote unquote, preparing students for the workplace. What does that possibly mean, right? I think in many ways we are doing that. And so part of it, and what you were all saying is we are not making it explicit. But in our breakout session, I was also thinking of the challenges for different disciplines, right? So we had Bernadette and Cal, both of whom have been professionals and are teaching in many ways the lessons learned from their professions, as opposed to someone like Jill, who teaches a highly theoretical, research-oriented academic discipline. And so we tend to, I think it seems harder for faculty doing the traditional academic disciplines. But I think, and I'm going to be honest, the people who are not here are the ones who I'm most concerned about, who think I'm not supposed to do that. The thing is we are doing it, and it's a matter of vocabulary, if we will, about shifting the idea and just sort of saying, yeah, well, the research that Jill was talking about, could she do a experiential learning presentation where they've done the quantitative calculations from the research, but they've got to present it to a boss and make a recommendation based on the findings or something, right? And then it goes to that word that was in your list, professionalism. That's a really loaded word, particularly at a place with so many first-generation students. And I wonder if we could figure out for ourselves what we think we mean by professionalism, and then conduct our classes as if all were professional environments. That might rub some the wrong way, but these were the thoughts that I was having this morning. Super exciting stuff, really interesting. And I want to thank our three, I don't know what you guys are called, Amie,
Fellows.
Cal, and
Career
Violet.
success fellows.
Fellows.
I have
Our
trouble
fellows,
remembering
thanks, our
it
fellows,
myself.
for
Yeah.
being willing to learn this stuff and share it out. We just are being strengthened by your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellison.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much for joining our session. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you everybody for coming, and it was great to see you all, and hope
Yes.
we can connect again, and please share your ideas with us. Thank you, everyone.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much, everybody. And we do have our contact information on the top of that handout we gave you. And we are planning a college-wide event for later in the spring that you'll hear more about. So thank you again, and hope to see some of you downstairs in a few minutes.
Okay,
Thanks so much.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.